So, in regards to kind of sports, you brought up kind of sports and feeding into who you are, separating the individual from actually what they do or perform. With that, sometimes people can take those mistakes or those failures and attach it to their identity. So how do you guys help people cultivate that acceptance of possibility of failure and the learning potential from it?
Adam.
Oh, I'm going first? Well, I think, I don't know if I'm going to answer your question right here, but I think there's a misconception, at least I'd be curious to actually hear what you guys think, and maybe I'm going off topic a little bit, but I think there's a misconception with anxiety and fear and sport, and I hear all the time about people, and I even say it myself, or I hear other parents say it, or other coaches say, hey, be confident, think positively, all these things. The reality is, it doesn't matter what you say. That's not going to do anything. I think there's a misconception that all of the best athletes and the best coaches don't have any doubts and don't have any fear. It drives me nuts a little bit when I hear people talk, when I hear professional athletes even talk about, the confidence that they have. And in my mind, literally about 80% of the people who I listen to be interviewed, I think they're just full of BS. I think the reality is, and what separates people from the best from everyone else, is their ability to deal with the fear, their ability to be mindful of their thoughts, and then make the decision to be courageous in those times. I'm sitting here, and I won 15 national championships, 2 gold medals, hopefully another one, but there's times where I doubt myself, and there's times where I'm scared as hell. And I think the difference is, again, being aware of it and then making the choice to be courageous in those times. And I think as parents, it's super important for us to communicate to our kids that it's okay. It's normal to have thoughts and negative thoughts and thoughts of doubt. That is a normal thing to do. You just have the choice to live the life and again, make your next step of actions the most important thing.
I'll dovetail there that what I was going to answer is that when we're talking about mistakes, there's an opportunity to redefine success and failure. And so success is not just getting the ring or getting the medal or the podium, and failure is not just not getting that thing. Right. It's not that simple. Mistakes are part of the process. Like, that's how we get better. You hear that all the time, right? Like, that's how you get better. Well, that's only part of it. The big part of it is when you make a mistake and you have a moment to say, okay, to gather yourself, like, okay, well, how do I figure out from that mistake to get better? And that might be something technically, it might be something physically, it might be something mentally and or emotionally to sort out to be more efficient the next opportunity that we have. So for us, the way we think about it, us, like me and the mouse in my pocket, the way we think about success is failure is the inability or the unwillingness to go for it. So we reorientate what failure is and we say, listen, it's just when you have the inability or you're not capable to let it rip, to get up on the edge, whatever that razor's edge is for you, and be there and adjust to the unfolding, unpredictable, unknown. And when we have those abilities to do that, like, the rest does take care of itself because we're figuring it out as we go. All of us are figuring it out. Everyone here is just trying to figure it out. And so mistakes are part of the DNA of figuring things out. Success and failure, we get to define what those are. And the courage to be vulnerable enough to be in the amphitheater with real risk, whether it's emotional or physical, is a noble, courageous characteristic and ability for all of us to figure out. But it is not something that we're born with. Some people are born with a predisposition for low anxiousness. So it looks easier for them in some situations. But most of us, we need that adrenaline thing to figure out, like, okay, How do I figure out how to be me in this environment? And that takes incredible, I don't know how you guys will talk about it. For me, that vulnerability is like, it's not the gold dust, it's the gold.
Yes. And I'm not going to echo what they said because they said it much more beautifully than I would have. But, and please correct me if I'm wrong. Because one of the things that I get two? Oh my gosh. Whoa. Pink? Okay. I only have one now. But it is pink. And I'm a breast cancer survivor, so go. Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong. Okay. The last Winter Olympics.
Can I correct you?
He's a doctor. You wear sandals to work. Okay. 2015 Winter Olympics. And I don't know, remember when they were. 17? I don't know. Okay. The Netherlands took home the most amount of medals, right? And I remember them talking to the director of the Olympics for the Netherlands, and they were asking him why, what was the magic sauce, the secret sauce behind all their winning. And he said, in our country, that we don't allow our children to play to win or lose or to play for points until they're 13 years old. And they simply learn to play the game, the sport that they love, for the sheer joy of playing it. And because they do this for so long, that's ingrained in them. And so he says their adult athletes compete at the Olympic Games from a place of joy. And is that true, or did I just make all that up?
There's a model called the long-term athletic development model. And so Adam knows this as well. Okay, you're right. Adam knows. Yeah. So it's a pretty well-researched model, and it was born out of Canada, has some of the research, and the Netherlands have adopted that. And the challenge that we have in America is that we are running to the podium as fast as we possibly can, and to become a master at anything takes an incredible amount of time. There are no shortcuts. There's no hacks. There's no 7 steps. There's no tricks and tips for mastery. And so to play the long game, to really understand the nuances of what it means to be you and what it means to express yourself through a craft takes so much time that if we strip young people from the joy and the love of figuring things out, and we're running to the podium, and you know it and I feel it, that run to the podium is a real deal, because all of us have this invisible handshake that we make. And that invisible handshake is, we'll do our thing together as long as you and I are successful together. And that means that if we're not successful together, the relationship frays. And that's most professional relationships, right? Hopefully not intimate relationships, but most professional relationships. So what the Netherlands, what Canada has done when they follow that model is say, hey, let's teach people how to love figuring something out. And so if you can come from that place, exponential growth takes place.
So I didn't say this as eloquently as he did, but I was invited to the White House this summer to speak with people in the House of Representatives and Senator Feinstein because of the horrific thing that happened with the gymnastics community in our country this last year. And the one question they kept asking me is, how do we turn this culture around? And it's like they wanted the 7-step program of how to do this, the magic pill, the book, to tell them how to turn it around. And I hadn't really thought about it before, but it was just so obvious to me when they did say that. I'm like, this is going to be a very long process, and it's going to start in the home with our parents and how we define success for our children and how we allow their coaches to define success for them. That's how you're going to turn this horribly abusive culture around.
I agree with that. And I think that right now there's a lot of pressure. And how do we go about instilling that love of the game and that love of interaction and relationship and team building and character building against the backdrop of the carrots that are being dangled, the elusive scholarship, the potential for the pros, all of these external things. How do we go about fighting those pressures of the carrot?
I think it's easier said than, it's not easier said than done. It's very difficult. I think we talk a lot about the process, and I think what's really important is that we praise the process. We praise the things that are happening in the process as outside of the results. So the work ethic that's displayed, the resilience that's displayed, I think that's really important. And then I obviously, and I'm speaking as a coach, and I think a lot of people here are parents. It starts with us and how we are, and we're going to have urges too to have to see and to watch our kids have success, and to be the very best in something. Thinking, like, just popped in my head, Coach Wooden always used to recite the poem. I might screw it up, but no written word, no spoken plea can teach their children how they should be, nor all the books on all the shelves. It's who the teachers are themselves. So I think did I get that right? Thank you. I think as we have to remind ourselves, because the reality is they look to us for leadership, and how we act is going to be how they act. And that's just an important lesson for, I think, all. It's not just coaches and teachers. It's obviously parenting as well.
And I really think that you psychology people need to retrain the world. Parents and coaches need to understand the damage that is done when they put so much pressure on children, emotionally and physically. Emotionally, mentally, and then transforms to physically. But I think, I don't believe anything has ever changed without education. And that's the only way for substantial change, because they're not going to change just because it sounds good and it's a nice little Hallmark card. That, like I always say, I don't understand why people think they have to take the joy out of learning anything ever. But that's a nice little Hallmark card. But the truth is, we've got to re-educate, and it's got to be a hard education. And we're seeing it with our youth now, with the numbers of reported loneliness, depression, suicides. It's a real thing. And so it's time for us to re-educate ourselves as adults.
What are some ways that parents can recognize and help really foster a positive experience for their kids when it comes to sports?
Fine. Very simply. I speak a lot in gyms and with younger children, and anytime they ask me to speak to the athletes, I always ask the parents to be there, because we have to be on the same page. And I think it's the simple answer to this is to set boundaries and to let your children know that you love them as human beings first, and that their sports and their academics, whatever their extracurricular is and all that, is as long as they are giving their honest best effort every day, as long as they are being respectful to their teammates, to their classmates, to their teachers, respectful to themselves, as long as they're learning one little thing every day, then you've had a successful day. And I always tell parents, there's a moratorium on when you get to talk to your daughter about gymnastics and not. So when you drop her off at the gym, all you get to say is go work hard and have fun at working hard, and have fun at working hard the stuff you don't like to do. Bye, honey, love you. And then when she gets in the car, you go, how was it? Did you enjoy it? Did you learn something? And she goes, yeah or no, and you go, great, what do you want for dinner? And then once you get in the house, you don't get to talk about it anymore. They have to have a safe space where you're not going to be badgering them. And I've had, obviously, when I speak in gyms, I go into a little bit more detail and give them a few more nuggets of things to say and not say. But it's interesting how many parents come up to me afterwards with just tears in their eyes and saying, I knew that was right and how I should have been coaching up or parenting my daughter, but I never really had the words for it. So That's it. And I finished on a comma or dot, dot, dot. Go.
Yeah, sure. Okay, I'll just add to it, which is one of the number one cited reasons why people leave sport at a young age is the car ride home.
Really?
Yeah, and so the car ride home is so dangerous because, us smart adults ask really subtly hostile questions, and they feel it, and the car door closes, and if they had a bad practice and mom and dad were watching, which we don't really need to watch our kids. We give them to hopefully capable coaches to help teach the psychological, physical, and technical skills. And I'll just put an asterisk into that, which is, not a comment, an asterisk, is that, we're expecting our coaches to do too much. So much of parenting needs to happen, and child development needs to happen from the parent. And so the idea that I'm going to send my kids off and they're going to come back better is a wish. Our coaches are exceptional people. They want to give back, and they are not nutritionists, although sometimes they act that way, right, because they need to. They are not parents, but sometimes they give life advice. They are supposed to be great at technical skills. They're not psychologists, but they end up giving incredible mental skills, advice, and sometimes some things that take away psychological frameworks. So just the asterisk is that make sure that the child that you're caring deeply about is with a person who cares deeply about them as well, and the rest will follow. All that being said, the car ride home is a very dangerous place. Yes. So just like you said, Val, asking the question, what'd you learn? Because that's 100% under their control, right? Attitude, effort, what you think about, and how you move, your actions. Those are the things that are 100% under your control. And when we index young people and adults towards trying to master the things that are in their control, they start to feel like, okay, I've got some self-efficacy. I've got this internal power that I can determine, how I go in life. And so that subtle question that Val was just talking about is, it's worth every weight of
exclamation point.
Yes.